All right, all right. Welcome to this next episode of the Victory Podcast, where we explore life, leadership, and journey. This past summer, I participated in Race Across America with a team of 8 phenomenal individuals and 21 other support people that helped these bicyclists race across the country. And I'm so humble and honored to have my friend and teammate, Don Davey, former NFL player. He played for the Green Bay Packers from 91 to 94 and for the Jacksonville Jaguars from 95 to 98. And then since, he pivoted from being an NFL player and has completed 11 Ironman triathlons. No small task for somebody that was, I think, playing at about 285 pounds and is now like 215 or something like that. So Don, thanks so much for joining us today. Really looking forward to this conversation and diving in and learning a little bit more about you.
Yeah, great. Great to see you again, Bob. It's been a while since we've been face to face riding our bikes across the country. So it's great to reconnect and looking forward to chatting with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So how did that? So the Ironman was what, 2 weekends ago? The last one you completed in?
Yeah, I
2 weekends ago. So
I was training for Race Across America since January, and that was all the way through June. I took a couple weeks off, but then at the end of that race, we were all in such good bike shape. It's like, man, I don't want to waste this, right? It's like, let me see if I can roll right into an Ironman. So that's what I did. I took only about 10 days off, and then rolled right into Ironman training. I was a little nervous because I hadn't run at all. I had been swimming during training for Race Across America. Obviously, I was riding the bike a ton, but I hadn't ran at all in 7 months. And so my coach was real easy with me. We kind of took baby steps, like 1 mile walk, 1 mile run, and just kind of built from there. And surprisingly, my run came back really, really strong. So I was really excited about this. I picked Ironman Florida. This was my 11th one. I've done these things all over the world, right? I've done UK, I've done Austria, I've done Germany, I've done Hawaii. I've never done the one in Florida, right in my own backyard. So I figured I'm going to nice, easy, no travel logistics. Florida is widely known as a fast course. It's flat. It's just like my training, swimming in the ocean, riding on a flat terrain on the bike. And so I was really excited about this. And my goal was to set a personal record. I'm 53 years old. I figured, you know what? I want to have my fastest time ever. My fastest time was 12 years ago. And I said, you know what? I'm in such good shape in this Race Across America. I really think I can do it. I know I'm going to have my fastest bike. My swim came along great, and the wild card was the run, but my run actually came along well. Well, we get to the race. Friday before the race is gorgeous, 65 degrees, sunny, beautiful. Friday afternoon, a freaking nor'easter comes rolling through. We wake up Saturday morning, we go to the swim start. It's 42 degrees in Florida, and there's like a 30-mile-an-hour wind gust. And the swim course has been set already, like in a clockwise rectangle, right? And the wind, obviously, as always happens, was straight against from right to left. And so we had to go out in the swim, and you're getting pushed, off course on the way out. And then you go straight into the current for the longest leg of the rectangle, come to shore. And the only time the wind was at your back when you were running on the beach about to do the second loop. So the wind didn't help you at all. Needless to say, the swim was brutal. The pros were all like 20, 30 minutes slower than the normal. 530 people didn't finish the swim. They couldn't finish by the cutoff time. That's a third of the group. I mean, a third, and these people all trained for a year for this thing, and a third of them got pulled out of the water, didn't finish. So it was a rough start. I got on the bike, but then the whole time I'm like, get me through this swim. I just want to get on my bike. I love my bike. I want to get on my bike. But those wind gusts, where it wasn't real hilly, but those wind gusts made the bike really challenging too. So I was a little bit slower on the bike than I wanted. And I got to the run, and I felt it was like a 6.5 mile out and back, 4 loops like that. And the first one I got in, and I felt a little weak. Didn't know what's going on. And then I noticed my ankle started swelling up. And it was like with every mile that I looked down, it would seem to be getting bigger and bigger in front of my eyes. Turns out I had a broken bone in my ankle I didn't know about. And I aggravated it about 3 days before the race. The bike it affected me on the bike. It really affected me on the run. Anyway, long story short, I came in. I didn't set a personal record. I didn't have a great race, but I did cross the finish line. And you know this as well as I do. Anytime you cross an Ironman finish line, and get that medal. It's a special feeling. So I was proud of the effort. Tough conditions, but I still made it through. And now I got to get my ankle fixed.
Well, yeah. So I was tracking your race. I had no idea about the ankle until just now, because my first question was going to be, you had set this goal, right, of beating your PR for this race. And then you probably within the first 10 strokes during the swim knew like, oh, shit, this is not going to happen at all. So how is that? I mean, you're a pure competitor. I mean, not just in the NFL. I mean, I've seen you in action. You are just a consummate professional competitor. So talk us through your mindset while you kind of were going through those strokes, because I've been there in adverse conditions in the water and you're like, well, this is not going to work out the way I planned. So how did you kind of cope with keeping some negative mindsets from happening and before you were aware of your ankle?
Yeah, that's very insightful, Bob, because that's exactly it. I mean, it was obvious, the first few strokes of the swim. I was like, holy crap, this is going to be rough. And I got through the first lap. I was about 10 minutes slower than I wanted on my first lap. I said, all right, that's not great, but we just got to make it up. Whatever, you adapt, you improvise, you overcome. It's like somehow, some way along the way, I gotta make up that time. And I get through the second, and I actually
Rooted
felt
for a really strong tailwind for the whole ride, right?
exactly. I actually felt much better on the second loop. But it turns out I got off course. So, an Ironman swim is 4,200, and I swam 5,100. So I put an extra 700 yards in on the swim. And just most people were the same, because it was even buoy to buoy. Those buoys are 200 yards apart. Just getting from one buoy to the next, you were drifting so far, you would swim and look up and say, oh crap, I got to get back over there to get back on track. So it was kind of a zigzag across the world. And so I got done with the second loop, even though I felt better. Now I had actually lost another, 15 minutes on top of it. So rather than swim, I'm 30 minutes behind schedule, right? It's like, but again, it's you know what? It is what it is. Somehow, some way, I got to do this. I'm just going to have to kick ass on this bike, and that's where I'm strongest. And that's when the ankle thing first started bothering me, where it was like, obviously it started swelling up there, but it was like you just kind of block that stuff out and say, listen, whatever's going on down there, I don't know. Turns out it's funny, I've pedal power meters, right? So it tracks the power independently
Yeah.
for right and left. And I worked really hard on this offseason, getting ready for RAM, to keep that at 50-50, 51-49, make sure you're evenly using both muscles. I got done after the race. I looked at it. I was like 68-32. So even without knowing it, that ankle swelling up, it just, what happens when you're injured. Your body's response is it purposely and smartly shuts down the muscles on the side you're injured, so that you don't keep injuring it, right? Or it doesn't want you to keep biking, and it doesn't want you to keep running on an injured ankle. And so I was really overcompensating on that.
For the
I got
non-average
done with the
humans,
bike.
for the average humans, it shuts down the muscles and then people stop competing. But, for beasts like you, it shuts down the muscles so you can turn it off and focus on the end state, right?
Well, it is very much a mentality. I played tackle football since I was 5 years old, and it's just, no, and it's probably very similar to the military. It's like, listen, no matter what's going on, no matter what hurts, no matter what the play is, no matter how big the guys you're playing against, no matter if there's a lightning storm, it's like, I've got a job to do, and I'm gonna get this job done come hell or high water. And that's certainly in an Ironman. That's the mission, right? Is just, I'm gonna get across that finish line. And with me, it was not only am I going to get across that finish line, I'm gonna get across in somehow under 11 hours, no matter what. And that was my mentality. So I was a little bit slower on the bike, not too far off on the bike, but probably another half hour slow. So now I start the run, and I'm an hour behind schedule. It's like, man, how am I? I was worried about the run to begin with, and now I got to make up an hour on this run. And like I said, after that first 6.5, that's when the ankle really started swelling up, and I was like, wait a minute, nah, there's something more here than I know what's going on. So even I got to the point during the run where it's like, you know what, I got to live to fight another day, right? I mean, I could kill
Survivor.
myself on this run, and I still won't come in at my personal record, but I might screw up my whole season for next year, right? I mean, you can do enough damage where this stuff doesn't heal right and doesn't fix. So it got to the point with the run. The third goal in here, I wanted to finish. I wanted to have a PR, but my Firehouse Subs partner was doing his very first one. right? And so my third goal was to make sure I got him across the finish line. So it actually be kind of cool. Hey, so listen, if I can't do my goals, let me make sure he hits his goal. And so I was walking somewhat where he caught up to me, and then I was kind of running just enough with him to make sure that he got across the finish line. And watching him cross the finish line was every bit as cool as me doing it too. So.
Oh man, the consummate professional champion. What a champion's mindset. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And like, you talked about the Firehouse Subs, and what I didn't talk about in the intro is your pivot from the NFL, and we're going to get into that later. And one of the things that I also want to get into is, in the military, we focus so much on the mission and the objective, and we spend so much time training. And so I want to really see what it was like of the mind of a professional athlete. Did you look forward to the training days or the game days? And we'll get to that in a little bit. But now that we've got that intro, I'd love to hear kind of your story, where you grew up, what life was like, the inspirations in your life, and how you find. I mean, you mentioned earlier that you started playing tackle football at 5. And so, let's just start there. Here's a 5-year-old, playing in, tackle football already.
Yeah, so I have 3 older brothers, 1 younger sister, 5 kids, big Irish Catholic family. My dad was a Marine, as you know. My mom was a stay-at-home mom.
Yeah.
And so, with 5 kids in the family, and being the youngest of the brothers, I got my ass kicked pretty good, right? They used to beat me up pretty good. And so it toughened me up, and they all played football, and I couldn't wait to play football. I remember being 2 years old, like at my brother's games, that I can't wait to put that helmet on. I just want to get out there. I want to be like them. I want to be like my big brothers and play tackle football. And we had a youth league started in kindergarten and played all the way through there. We moved from, I was born in upstate New York. We moved to Wisconsin when I was about 10 years old. And then by then they had, the youth leagues, and then the middle school team, and then went right to the high school team. And it's funny, with all of us, not just with me, all my brothers were good athletes too. Um, my dad, as the Marine, he was an athlete, but he always said, listen, you guys love your sports and all that stuff, but the rule in our house is you take care of your grades, or I'm taking away football, right? I'm taking away sports. That has to be number one. He knew the importance of an education, and he emphasized with that all of us. And so what it did for us is said, hey, listen, I love playing football, and I love playing basketball, and I love running track, and I love playing baseball. But I better study really hard in school, otherwise Dad's going to take that away from me, right? I mean, it was kind of that was my reward. It's like, if I do well in school, then I get to do what I really love. It turns out I love school too. I really did. So I was a straight A student all the way through, middle school, high school. I was valedictorian our senior class. That really helped me get recruited for football. I was a pretty good football player. We won 3 state championships in a row in my high school. But grew up in Wisconsin, cheering for the Badgers. I got offered a scholarship for the Badgers, and it's one of the best engineering schools in the country, which is what I wanted to study. It was perfect. I mean, it was a dream come true. Funny story on that. So I go down, and before my freshman year, I outlined my whole 4-year curriculum, right? I researched all the classes and said, listen, I want to graduate. I want a degree in mechanical engineering in 4 years. This is how many credits I have to take this semester, second year, third year, whatever. I had the courses all laid out. And I showed up on campus, and I had all this. And we had a academic advisor for the football team. And he looks at this, and he's like, whoa, wait a minute. I don't know if you know, but this is Division I football, and we're in the Big Ten, and you're going to be practicing 20, 30 hours a week. Let's scale this back here, at least this first semester, to prove. And I was like, are you kidding me? If I only take 15 credits instead of the 20 that I want to take my first year, that's going to put me behind schedule. And so it went from there to we had a chief academic counselor, and from there it went to the head coach, and from there it went all the way to the athletic director, where I literally had to beg the athletic director to take the courses I want. And they said, listen, just do us this favor, just for this first year, take 3 credits less than what you want, and prove yourself on that you can handle it, and then we'll go from there. And I said, if I do this for you, and I prove that I can handle it, you'll leave me alone for the next 4 years, right? And absolutely, I got it promise from the athletic director, from the head coach, from everybody. So you probably know the end result. I got a 4.0 my first year. No freshman on the football team had ever
Yeah,
gotten.
it's just remarkable.
Engineering, by the way.
But I mean, what a great story of like, one is, your belief in yourself, which obviously got you to where you were to be selected by that school. But also, the commitment to your education, to have that negotiation all the way up through the athletic directors. And then of course you're going to prove them right, prove yourself that you're capable of it and
But
move on.
yeah, I was so surprised, quite honestly. I mean, this is the rule in our house, right? I mean, Dad always said it: school comes first,
Yeah.
school comes first, school comes first, school comes first, and that was just my mindset. And I guess I was naive enough to know that that's not always the mindset in Division I athletics at every school. A lot more so at Wisconsin than other schools, that's for sure. But even at Wisconsin, where they pride themselves on student athletes and putting academics first, it was a challenge. So I got a 4.0 first year. It was the first time any freshman football player had ever done that. And I proved myself on the field too, right? As a starter on the field, made it through the whole season. I was traveling, I was doing all that stuff, and came back second semester. And then our guy Davey, you're on here. You can do whatever you want. So I graduated 4 years, but I actually had a redshirt year. So I got my undergrad in 4. My 5th year, I went to grad school. I got my master's in mechanical engineering my 5th year. And again, school first, right? School first. I applied to postgraduate. I was going to get a PhD. Yeah, I wanted to teach engineering. I thought it was like, okay. So I used to be captain of the math team. I'm a total nerd. My wife always said, "Man, if you didn't play football, you would be the biggest geek." I had the Coke bottle glasses. I literally have a picture of me with a trophy from the math team in middle school. And so numbers and science and engineering and physics, that was just my love. But then I've been accepted to get my PhD at Wisconsin to start that, and I got drafted by the Packers. And it's like, well, hell, I might as well give this NFL thing a chance. I mean, you talk about a dream come true. I got to pick to go to Wisconsin.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you grew up in your home state. You watch the Packers play every weekend with your dad. Boom.
My hometown is 20 minutes from Green Bay. So we're at home, actually, with the whole family. My dad actually answers the call. And I'll never forget, how excited he was. He said, "God, it's the Packers." Because you have no choice in the draft, right? As a player, you have to go wherever whichever team drafts you. And my dream was to play for the Packers, but you got a 1 in 30 chance at the time of getting that call. So to this day, I was telling the story. I was up for the Packer game this weekend, and they had me do a tour with some fans, and I was telling them this story. I was like, "Listen, to this day, I still have 2 records with the Packers. I only played for them for 4 years, but I hold 2 records. Number one, I'm the fastest draft pick to ever, from the time I hung up the phone to the time I showed up at the press conference. I was there like in 18 minutes. It's like I hung up the phone, jumped in the car, ran up there, and hey guys, I'm here. I showed up before I was the 3rd round pick. I was before the 1st rounder, before the 2nd rounder. I was like, hey guys, I'm here. And my second record is I showed up with the largest entourage because everybody from my family, my high school buddies, my college buddies, my hometown, everybody showed up to cheer me on draft day as well. So it was really, really special time. I got great pictures of me and my dad and
That's
my mom,
amazing.
my brothers on that first draft day. It was really, really cool. And those 4 years up there were a really special time in my life.
I think there's probably a third record too. You're probably the first Green Bay Packer to start with a master's degree in chemical engineering.
That's
I mean,
true.
that's a little bit. You're more than a unicorn, Don Davey. Wasn't even aware of that. My goodness.
The other thing that's unique is that somebody, I didn't realize this. But when I think about it, it's true. There was an article in the Milwaukee Journal. Some sports guy did the research. There's only been 12 kids ever to grow up in the state of Wisconsin, get a full ride scholarship for the University of Wisconsin Badgers, and then get drafted by the Green Bay Packers across the board. Only 12 kids ever. I mean, you're a kid in Wisconsin growing up. I mean, you start playing football early and you say, you know what, I'm Bart Starr and I'm Reggie White. And I mean, it's like every kid's dream. And to play not only for the Badgers, but for the Packers, it was really, really special and a great time in my life.
Yeah, there's the first goosebump episode during our call today. So that's pretty remarkable. Pretty remarkable. So what was it like for 4 years playing in your home stadium? You know, just the adrenaline, the joy, it just and the commitment, you know, I can't even imagine all the emotions that happen every game day when you guys had home games.
It was really, really cool. I mean, that first game, I never forget, we played the Philadelphia Eagles. It was first regular season game. And I'm a rookie in the
Oh,
NFL. And I remember, I showed up at the stadium at like 4:30 in the morning, and then nobody's there. The doors are locked. And then finally the maintenance crew
91,
comes
that was
in.
still against Cunningham, right? Was that still Cunningham in 91
Oh, yeah. Yep, yep, yep.
for the Eagles?
Yeah. Reggie
Yeah.
White was there. That was
All right.
still, and we played him in a home game. And my only job, I was a backup defensive lineman, but I was a starter on the kick return team, right? With the wedge team, right? They used to put big guys on the wedge to you run backwards, the big four guys, offensive defensive linemen get together, you set the wedge for the kick return and come up. And I that was my only job, right, for the whole game. And I'm a rookie in the NFL. The fans going crazy, and I'm literally, peeing my pants, and I'm crying, and I'm nervous and excited. And I get out there, and the opening kickoff, they kick the ball back, and I had my guy, and there was some huge linebacker, man. He had arms about the size of tree trunks. He's like, "That's my guy, number 56. I gotta block him. I gotta block him. I gotta block him." Kick goes over my head, run back, set the wedge. We all get a look forward. And I underestimated his speed by, about a week. He was so much faster than I gave him credit for, right? And I just totally whiffed, right? I came after him and I went where I thought he was going to be, and he snuck right around me. And by Sakahima, he was our kick returner, and he got blasted right in the face. I mean, and there's a sound that only exists in the universe of that perfectly clean hit when you're running full speed into another football player and you just crush him over backwards. And that's I stood there watching this happen right in front of me that I just totally whipped. And I'm just instantly, I was like, that's it. My career's over. It's like they're going to cut me before I get to the sideline. I finally had my dream, and I screwed it up on the very first play, and now it's over. It lasted, 8 seconds. My NFL career, it's over. And but I felt so
And all those
good.
emotions
I felt
happened
so
in like
good.
a fraction of a second.
Yeah, it was like, oh my god! I went from so elated, excited, this is great, so cool, I'm gonna kick ass, to oh my god, he might get hauled off the field in a freaking ambulance, and the poor guy, and he was a good friend of mine. And I get off the field, but it was the thing about adversity and going through tough times. It was like, I mean, it was just so humbling to me, I guess, where it was like, it just, I didn't take it for granted any longer, that's for sure. It's like, listen, if I want to be and I want to compete at this level, these are the 1,500 best athletes on the planet. And I better work my ass off, I got to study even harder. I got to get faster. I got to do whatever. And that first play was a really big motivator that probably is a big reason why I lasted another 9 years after that was that, hey, I did everything possible from that point forward to make sure that I did my job and did what I was supposed to do. And that's, special teams.
Yeah.
And I actually was
What's the statistic for the defensive line? I'm sorry, Don. The statistic for defensive line, like the average, 3 to 5 years, right? That's typically what they're playing.
NFL player, 3 years is average career NFL players.
3
And like
years.
that, from special team, my role got bigger, right? And then I was on, and these were new. They put me on the punt return team because in the NFL, the starters are you only want them playing offense, defense, right? The special teams, by and large, are all the backup players. And even if you're offensive lineman or defensive lineman, listen, you're not the fastest guy, but it's better having you out there than having our starting free safety out there, right? That's kind of the mindset. And so I was put in positions where I wasn't used to playing. It's like I'd never been on a punt return team since kindergarten. I was like, but I had to learn how to do this. But then eventually I was a kind of a fill-in guy. I was the first backup where I would come in and play, and then I was eventually a full-time starter. And every time my role got bigger, it was, hey, I got to work even harder. I got to master my craft even more if I'm going to last in here with the best of the best. But anyway, great experience. My family's living nearby. My college buddies. I went broke on tickets. Every week I had to buy a freaking 50 tickets for all my friends and family. But I was happy to do it because it was really, really a cool, fun time in my life.
Well, I love, your remark about that pivotal play and then your intuition be like, that's it. I'm in the big leagues. I've got to do the work. I know you didn't do it alone. Were there some key leaders and people that helped you kind of steer your path, while you're working and refining those skills, and how could you level up your game and be consistent?
Yeah, so my second year, I get through the first year. We had a rough year. We went 4-12. Coach got fired, and that's when they bring in Mike Holmgren, right? And Ron Wolf was our general manager. Mike Holmgren for San Francisco was our head coach. And the first thing they did was sign Reggie White, right? We stole him from the Eagles and brought him over. And he was the first week. Two guys. We traded for Brett Favre, got him in as our quarterback, and then we signed Reggie White as the first, big name free agent to come to Green Bay. So now you talk about a blessing. I mean, a mentor, just not only as a football player, but as a human being. I mean, Reggie White, ordained minister, family guy, just a
Yeah.
good, wholesome person who was just a monster on the football field. I mean, just arguably the best that's ever played. So now in practice, I get to learn from this guy, right? It's like I don't have to watch film. It's like, all I got to do is go over to Reggie. Hey, Reggie, what do you think of this? What do you think of this? And he was so generous with his time. And it was so funny. You remember his hump move? He's famous where he would go running up the field and he would take a 350-pound guy and just hump him over, pass over TK. And we had that defensive line. We had Sean Jones. We had Steve McMichael from the Bears. We had John Jurkovic, Matt Brock, Bryce Pop, NFL Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, we had a lot of talented guys on that defensive line. And we were like, Reggie, how do you do that? What's the secret? What's the trick? And he said, well, it's easy. You just go up like this, and then you take the guy and you throw him over on his head. And we would all spend hours and hours and hours like trying to do that. And none of us could do it. He was just such a powerful human being. And interestingly, not real strong in the weight room. Never, I mean, he could probably bench 300 pounds, which isn't a lot for an NFL defensive lineman. But man, just his hips and his lower body and his upper body strength was just phenomenal. So anyway, as a mentor, he was phenomenal. And then of course it was, hey Don, you and Kristen, do you want to come over to a Bible study? We're having a Bible study at the house. Some guys in the NFL, are phony when it comes to that stuff. You know what I mean? It's, they're pointing at the sky and they're getting down on one knee, but then they're out doing horrible things right after the game, right? I mean, Reggie was genuine through and through 100%. I mean, he lived it. He was an ordained minister. He dedicated his life to God. And like I say, it was despite that, was a ferocious animal on the football field. He's like, listen, I love God, but when I'm on that field, my job's to take that guy's head off and get to the quarterback. And I feel like that's God's mission for me when I'm out there on the football field. So it was
And I
very,
believe a human
very
being like Reggie White could take the head off of a football player with love. It was done from a place of love and respect, I'm sure.
That's right. That's right. Exactly. And a lot of offensive linemen will tell you this story. If you talk about older offensive linemen, anyone that ever played against Reggie White, the worst thing you could ever do on the football field was to cuss or swear in front of Reggie White. That made him furious. Because some, offensive linemen, they're big, 320-pound guys. They're like, I ain't afraid of Reggie White. I'm going to take out, F you, Reggie. I'm going to take you down. And oh my God, there's so many stories and so many guys I know that made that mistake that literally just got dumped over. And Reggie would literally take a play off to make a point. He's like, he wouldn't even care about the quarterback, wouldn't care about the ball carrier. He would just take one play, take that guy, pick him up, dump him on his ground, and point to it and said, don't ever cuss at me again. And that would be it. And that would be the end of it.
Oh man, thank you for sharing. I love that. Amazing. So 4 years at Green Bay, and then you shift over to Jacksonville. What was that like for you? And you move your family you have 5 daughters. I'm sure by that point you were along the way to building your family. What was that pivot like for you?
Yeah, that was a tough decision. So 4 years, great. Like I said, great time in my life. Love the Packers. Loved playing it for my home. I didn't want to leave. I mean, I didn't just wake up one day and say I'm leaving. But like I said, we were just stacked on that defensive line. I mean, I was a good player, but in that group, I mean, there were 3 Hall of Famers in our defensive line meeting rooms. I was the 6th best of the 6 players, and I was still pretty good. I wasn't a Hall of Famer. And I knew that, hey, listen, for me to kind of get out of their shadow and for me to be a full-time, to be kind of the guy on a team and to, make my own name for myself, I really needed to go to another team. And at the time, the Jaguars were an expansion team. Dick Duran, our defensive back coach, was hired by Tom Coughlin to be our defense coordinator for the Jaguars. He and I are very close, and he convinced me to sign with the Jaguars. And when I went to the Jaguars, I took number 92 to say thank you to Reggie. That was kind of my tribute to him when I went there. It's like I was number 99 with the Packers, but when I went to Jacksonville, I said, listen, give me number 92. I feel so grateful for Reggie. He taught me so much. And anything I do from this point in my career, he will have had a big hand in. And so I want everybody to know that. And so I went on. I had 4 great years with the Jaguars. It was cool. The Jaguars were cool because everything was brand new, right? Brand new expansion team.
New,
It
yeah.
was, the first sack I got was the first sack in Jaguars history, right? The first time we won a game was the first win in history. The first road win was the first road win in Jaguar history. And the fans here just loved us and just embraced us. And you know how crazy the fans are in Green Bay. Well, they were every bit as crazy here in Jacksonville because they finally had a pro football team here to cheer for. And every game was sold out. The cool thing with the Jaguars is that we went 4-12 that first year, but our very second year we made the playoffs, and we ended up making all the way to the AFC Championship game in only our second year. And so, I'm proud of the fact I was one of the veteran leaders on that team, where we had a bunch of guys from the expansion draft, a bunch of rookies that we signed, a bunch of street free agents. But me, Jeff Lagerman, Mark Brunell, we were kind of the leaders on that team, where it was like we got those guys to believe in what we were doing, so much so that in our very second year we were a playoff team, and then had a great run 3 years in a row in the playoffs from that point forward. So I was very proud of that experience as well.
Yeah, remarkable. And you're still in Jacksonville. So you're basically, again, back to your sort of, I know maybe you don't like being referred to as a unicorn. We'll save that for Monty Heath. But you're a hometown hero in 2 hometowns. You've got Green Bay and you've got Jackson. I mean, it's just like crazy.
So even to this day, those first 4 or 5 years of the Jaguars, the fans remember those players and those years and those teams even more vividly than the last 5 years, right? I mean, it's that, oh my God, that team, those first games, you guys were so good, and it was so nice having a team. So it very much is that I feel like one of the founding members of the Jaguars, and that we've been here now ever since I retired and made this our home. That we're a hometown hero in this town as well.
So really interesting. So you make that pivot from Green Bay for professional reasons within the NFL and kind of make your mark and kind of strive out from the shadow. And obviously, 2-time engineering degree, and was kind of maybe a business-minded move as well, to pivot to the Jaguars for your career and I don't know, financially or whatever that was, but so what was your business plan looking like, especially as you knew your career was coming to an end and you were planning to retire?
Yeah. So, unlike most of the NFL guys, like I said, go back to, I never planned to go in the NFL in the first place. And even when I got drafted,
Right.
the NFL, it could last 2 weeks. Who knows? It might last a week. It might last a month, a year. I never planned on, hey, I'm going to have a 10-year NFL career and this and that.
Right, because the contracts back then were much differently. Because I had heard the story of Brett Favre, right? Like he was concerned about hey, yeah, I'm having a great year, but if my knee gets taken out, that's it. Like they'll finish out my contract for this season, but then there's nothing.
Well,
So
that's
there's always that variable of I could be gone tomorrow.
That's what's reality in the NFL, right? I mean, number one, it's the most violent of all the professional sports, so our rate of injury is much higher than basketball, baseball, or hockey across the board. Number two, none of our contracts are guaranteed, right? Unlike the other sports across the board. And those two things are related, right? It's hard for the owners to guarantee contracts because so many guys get hurt where you'd have so much dead money on your books, it'd be hard to manage a team. And so I get it. But from a player's perspective, I took the mindset that, hey, listen, whether I play 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, I'm going to save and invest wisely every single penny of this. And by the way, in the offseason, I interned at an engineering firm. I mean, that was my backup plan. I was like, listen, if I get cut tomorrow, I'm going to go work for this engineering firm. And those were kind of fun days. I showed up at work and everyone's like, don't you play for the Packers? And I'm like, yeah, but who knows? The NFL, we call it not for long for a reason. I mean, I might be working here full time next week. Who knows? So what I did is applied my engineering background to finance, right? It's like, listen, I'm young, I'm making money, I'm saving it. I want to figure this stuff out, So I started studying financial planning, and I studied taxes, and I studied insurance, and I studied estate planning, and I studied portfolio management, and applying my engineering skills to finance for purely selfish reasons. I never wanted to do this professionally, but I just say, listen, if I have any kind of career at all, I'm making good money and I save this, at the very least, I can give myself a pretty good head start on life. And at best case, I might be able to set myself and my family up for life if I play long enough and I'm good enough, get good enough at this. So my off seasons, I spent learning finance, right? And by the time I was with the Jaguars, towards the end of my career, a lot of the young guys started coming to me for help and advice. Hey, we got this 401k plan with Don. What do you think I should do with this? Hey, Don, I got some money at Merrill Lynch. This is what my guy's doing. What do you think of this? Do I need insurance? Do I need annuities? And so I started just helping guys just by being a good teammate. And it became obvious that these guys needed help, number one. And number two, I was in a perfect position to help them because I was in the same boat, right? I mean, nobody knows our NFL 401k plan better than I because I'm in our NFL 401k. I'm a participant. And so while I was still playing, I formalized it. I started my investment advisory firm, Discipline Equity Management, to help my NFL players do what I had done. I mean, I had handled my own finances very well for 10 years. And all I did for these guys is show them exactly how I did it. And that was the genesis of my primary firm, Discipline Equity Management.
Discipline Equity Management. And you've definitely been, exemplary in your discipline, from your academics to applying all those things. Look, doing internships at an engineering firm during your off season when the rest of the NFL is probably all flying to Cancun and partying like crazy. You're doubling down on your long-term future. So,
but again, Bob,
so amazing. So
you
you've got
the story of my dad, the Marine, and to me that was just the norm, and it still is just the norm, right? I mean, you're disciplined in everything you do, and you do your best in everything you do. Our stuff, I'm not great at everything, right? But the things I do choose to do, I'm all in, right? And I'm going to do it as hard and as long and as best as I can across the board. And that was true with academics. It was true with college football. It was true with the pros. It was true when it came to investing. It's true when it's running my business. It's true when being a father and being a husband. It's like, listen, I'm all in. I'm going to coach the kids in their swim team, and I'm going to coach them in flag football, right? And I'm going to be the math tutor for my kids, and I'm going to be there for them. I mean, now don't ask me to paint a picture, and don't ask me to sing a song, or that's your job, Bob. You got the great singing voice for country roads, but
I don't know about the singing voice, but but if I am so inspired, it will come belting out. I love doing it while I'm on the bicycle with like random groups, and they'll all of a sudden be like, "What the hell is Newman doing now?" Awesome. So within that financial space, and you mentioned a lot of, you were helping a lot of the NFL players while you were still in the NFL, and I think that's pivoted to a little bit of your role now. But your clients aren't just NFL players, but like, what are those conversations like when you're talking to those NFL players? I'm sure you're trying to give them like a paintbrush stroke of reality of like, hey, tomorrow is going to come sooner than you know, and you better start planning for it, now. And like, so how does that, what's your access like to them? Are people hunting you out? Are you sort of cherry picking the people that you think, okay, here's somebody that's got the right mindset that I know I could help?
Yeah. So so then I got hurt my last year and I'm retired. And I was like, well, this is perfect. I already got this business started. I've got a few NFL players I'm working with. I know hundreds of NFL players around the league. These guys need my help. Nobody's better positioned to help them than I am across the board. So I just started reaching out, to my network. And it was frustrating to me because of exactly what you said, that, the first message is that, hey guys, this could all end tomorrow, right? And nobody wanted to hear that, right? The guy's like, well, yeah, but my contract's up next year, and then I'll probably get a 4-year deal, and then I'm going to make so much more money, and all. I was like, I hope that happens. I really do. Reality is, I'm a mathematician. I'm a statistician. The average career is 3.3 years, right? And guess what? You're in your second year. If you're playing the odds, you only got 1 year left, and you can't retire on what you have now. So you better save everything on what you're making. But like the mentality, it's funny. That's a whole psychological discussion. But the things that you can imagine, it takes a certain mental attitude and a certain psychological makeup to make it to the NFL, right? You have to have a certain degree of confidence. You have to be willing to go all in, and you have to be willing to say, hey, you know what? I believe in myself, and I'm going to be successful. Um, and as those things, as good as they are for helping those guys make it to the NFL, they're horrible for them when it comes to saving and investing and those type things, right? Because they always think the career is going to be longer than it is, and so there's no sense of urgency to do it now. And again, I go back to from day one. My original signing bonus, I did two things. I bought my wife, or my now wife, I bought my girlfriend an engagement ring because I finally had enough money to buy her an engagement ring, and I knew I wanted to marry her. And I invested every other penny of it, right? And we lived in a crappy little apartment, and we drove used cars. And my wife used to say, "What the heck, we're in the NFL now, right? I mean, shouldn't we live better than we lived in college?" And I'm like, "Well, honey, we can either enjoy it now, or if you let me be smart with it now, we can enjoy it for the rest of our lives, right?" And that was the approach we took.
Thanks for
And
sharing that.
again,
I was going to ask you about your standard of living. So you got there. Great.
very frugal across the board. Trust me, she reminds me of that now. She's like, "You said I could do whatever I want now, right?" I bought into this years ago, and so now you can't give me a hard time for. And I say, "Hey, you know what? You're right. You've earned it now." But with the NFL guys, it was a tough sell, and so I got frustrated. Where it's like they didn't. I knew how to show them to do things right. They didn't want to do things the right way, right? They wanted to have 3 cars, they wanted to have 5 houses, and they wanted to travel instead of saving and invest. They didn't want to live frugally. And it's sad, but a lot of the guys said to me, "Hey, Don, I don't have an engineering degree like you. This is as good as it's going to get for me, my life in the NFL. I could end up being you know, picking up garbage for a living when I'm done with the NFL. I don't know. So I'm going to live it up while I can." And that was so foreign to me, right? So upside down to me. I was like, I saved and invested every penny, even though I knew I could make 100 grand as an engineer if it all went to hell. If I didn't have an engineering degree and I was facing the prospect of driving a garbage truck after, I would save even more. You know what I mean? I would think it would be even more motivating if this is my only chance and the only thing I'm good at. But that wasn't it. That wasn't the mentality that I ran across.
Well, you did. You let in with it that it's a psychological effect that you've witnessed. And I can share with you from the SEAL teams, I've seen a very similar kind of psychological impact because the same attributes are there. We have a high degree of self-confidence and self-belief. And even people like me that were really, had no place in being a SEAL as a young kid. I was 165 pounds, right? In the arena, I seemed unlikely, right? And so through that process, my confidence level was going through the roof. And so when you've been able to establish and overcome all these obstacles because you believe in yourself, it's a probably very natural thing to be like, oh, everything will work out. And that was in my mind when I was a younger SEAL, like, oh, whatever happens, it'll work out because I've always made it work out. And so I can understand how a lot of the NFL players kind of get into that trap. And so this helps us pivot into the transition, sort of mindset of like, okay, now it's really real. And man, I can't imagine being some of those NFL players that were just like, not paying attention, bought the 3 cars and the 3 houses and all those other things. And now all of a sudden, they've got no liquidity or no way of really making it, income, unless they're really one of the shiny stars that still's got those endorsements and everything.
The saddest stories from the NFL are the guys that wanted to do things right, but got taken advantage of, either by friends, family members,
Mm.
financial advisors, accountants, lawyers. I mean, there's lots of stories of guys, good people, good human beings, smart guys, wanted to do things right, but just ended up trusting the wrong people. And again, I go back to, people make fun of the NFL guys. It's something like 80+% of NFL guys have some sort of financial trouble after they leave the game. And I asked people, I said, when you were 22 and somebody handed you a check for $4 million, I mean, would you have known what to do with it, right? You probably would have trusted somebody. And think back to at 22, how small your network was back then, right? You probably didn't have someone like me, a financial advisor or whatever that you trusted. You had a couple of high school buddies and a couple of college buddies. That's like, well, you know what? At least I'll trust him. And the hard part is, and it's true of anybody, if you're going to trust somebody for advice on anything, you need two things. Number one, you have to be able to trust them just implicitly. You know what, Bob? I trust you as a person. We're longtime friends. I'm just going to trust you. But that's not enough. That person also has to be fluently competent in your situation, right? And think about how unique the NFL situation is. You're 25 years old and you're making $3 million a year. There's very few people that are familiar with that type of situation to begin with. And there's zero that you probably know personally that you just trust implicitly because he's a family member or a friend or a close family friend or something like that, right? So I get it. I mean, it's an environment that kind of breeds opportunity for unscrupulous people to come in and take advantage of some of these guys. And I feel sorry for them because it's many of them do want to do things right. They just don't know where to turn to get the right advice, and they end up trusting the wrong people. So anyway,
Yeah,
that's
and
a
once they
long
leave the
segue. Go ahead. Well,
No, I was going to say, so when you leave the NFL, there's really no lifeline, I suspect. Like you close out your contract, hey, thanks, you played great, and then that's it. That team's moving forward, the train's going 100 miles an hour, and there's like no support structure for those transitioning athletes, and the parallels that we shared about sort of the mentality of the military members and what it's like to transition. And some military members, their identity becomes a veteran or combat veteran or whatever that is. But here's the difference, and you kind of talked about the numbers. About 220,000 veterans transition out of the military annually. I mean, that number's got to be like 1/10,000th of that, in the NFL. How many NFL players are transitioning every year?
right,
50, 150,
right. Yeah. So,
But being able to create an organization that helps them make those decisions has got to exist. Is there anything like that out there for those players today?
So there is, I mean, to the NFL's credit and the NFL players' credit, the big shift in mindset with that was when Junior Seau killed himself. So Troy Vincent is Roger Goodell's right-hand man. He's a buddy of mine from Wisconsin. Troy recruited me several years ago to sit on an executive committee that he put together after Junior Seau killed himself. Junior Seau was our poster boy, right, to the NFL, or not mine, but the NFL's poster boy. Great person, great, phenomenal football player, just a likable guy, great with the media. I mean, he's what everybody wants. But he transitioned out of the NFL, and in large part because of his concussions and the CTE issues that he was facing, went into this state of solitary confinement, distanced himself from all his former teammates, all his family members, and eventually killed himself, right? And that was a big wake up call for the NFL. That was about 10 years ago, where the Roger
I was
Goodell
going to ask how long ago that was.
yeah, and said, listen, if that can happen to Junior Seau, it could obviously happen to anybody, right? If he had such a great experience in the NFL, suppose you only played 3 or 4 years in the NFL, you're a no-name guy, and you have all those same issues. And so he challenged Troy to kind of put more programs in place to help guys transition because it wasn't just goodwill. Think how many moms after that happened walked into their sons' bedrooms and took away their football helmet, right? And say, hey, listen, I mean, the message when that happened, football is dangerous, it's scary, it could lead to brain issues, it could lead to suicide, and all these terrible things. I don't want my kids playing football. I mean, and if kids don't grow up playing football, guess what? They're not going to buy the jerseys, right? They're not going to buy the tickets. Our talent pool, I mean, there's not as many guys playing, so there's not as good of a product that we can put on the field for college and pro football. And so the NFL recognized that, and to their credit, that's where all these concussion rules started coming in. We didn't have concussion protocols when I played. Now they're in place. The game is by and large much safer now than when I played. And in addition to that, they put some programs in place for transitioning NFL players. In fact, there's quite a few resources available to the guys, but you can relate to this, I'm sure. It's you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. It's getting the guys to take advantage of the resources. And I go back to the mindset, the player. These are proud guys. They've always been very independent. I made it to the highest level. There's only 1,500 people on the planet out of 8 billion that can do what I did in the NFL at any one time. You know what? I did that on my own. I'm going to figure out life after football on my own. I don't want help. I don't need your help, right? Um, and reality is they do need the help, and they don't get the resources that they need. And again, talking with you, it's a very similar story with the military guys, where they're proud people. Shoot, I mean, they learned how to drive tanks and drive Hummers and shoot AK-47s. It's like, you know what? I'm not going to go to some counselor and talk about my feelings. I mean, that's I'm going to figure this out on my own.
Yeah, and it takes people like you and other leaders that can make an impact and communicate with them and with an understanding of, sort of empathy, compassion, but you're also that person that they look up to. And that's what's been some successful models for us in the military. I think I shared with you, the Honor Foundation is one of the organizations that works with special operations forces transitioning. And it's because of the caliber of people that are involved with the program, while people gravitate to it, and they've grown from I think when they first started, they were only putting 25 people through a cohort twice a year. Now they're putting 120 people through each season, right? So they're like over 1,500 people have been impacted in the last number of years, which is a big number for the soft community. And so hopefully the message gets out there to those NFL players, and they understand that, like, hey, everybody in these organizations have your best interest in mind. And the veteran community, and this is why, you and I would love to be able to kind of help work on something offline, because I feel a great appreciation because of the CTE awareness that was brought to the forefront through the studies because of the NFL. I mean, I'm sure you're tracking that we have the same injuries happening in the military, some from concussion blast. I mean, I was exposed to thousands of concussions through explosives and breaching and all those things that I was doing. And I have scar tissue all over, my brains when I went through, NICO up at Bethesda. So it's a concern for this whole community, but it would not have been brought to the forefront without the NFL and those studies that were done. And they were, I guess, about as transparent as you could imagine, and trying to address it, fix it, and then change implementation to it. So, I feel that there's a debt out there that we all owe to people, especially entertainers. I mean, my goodness, fighting a war is one thing, but risking your life to entertain others is like, man, it's like a whole nother level of, it's literally you guys are modern day gladiators, for some regard,
Well, I love that, the great thing about our RAM experience is being shoulder to shoulder with military groups and sharing these stories. I mean, that idea. So now we're talking about transition, right? I think my whole life I was Don Davey, the football player, right? And I had a locker room, and I had teammates, and the mentality, and in a squad in the military, right? It's a bunch of guys. It's a brotherhood. You've got a common purpose. I think about the NFL, just like the military. I mean, it was the reason I lived where I lived, right? It was how I made my money. It was the reason I went to the gym and worked out, right? I mean, it was my friend group. It was my wife's social circle. She was friends with all my buddies' wives. I mean, that was our entire social circle. And you hit the nail on the head. When it's over, it's over, right? I mean, it's not like there's this gradual transition, and then you go to the senior league and you play a few games there, and then you gradually transition out. It's like you're in the NFL, you're in the NFL, you get hurt, you're out of the NFL, like instantly, right? And all that goes away. Your income goes away. You have no reason to live in any one particular area because you don't have a job anymore. Your friend circle goes away because they're busy. They got their schedules and they got their games to play and they got workouts and weightlifting and all that stuff. And what happens to most guys, and I to a certain extent, even with me, they lose their identity. Right? For 26 years, from age 5 to age 31, whether I wanted to or not, everybody looked at me as Don Davey, the football player, right? My parents would introduce me. Oh yeah, that's Don. It's our son Don, and he's the football player, right? That was your identity. Even though I had a master's in engineering, right, and even though I had 5 kids, and even though I learned finance, I mean, it was the outside world looked at me as Don Davey, the football player. And with you guys, it's the same thing, right? It's Bob Newton, the Navy SEAL, right? You're You're the military guy. You're an Army Ranger, right? You're the officer in the Marine Corps, whatever it is. And same thing with you. When it's over, it's over. You're in and now you're out. And what you have to do, at least my thoughts on this, is that you have to consciously and proactively redefine yourself as something else. Because I'll never be Don Davey, the football player, again. I'll always be Don Davey, the former football player. I mean, that'll always be a proud period of my life I'm very proud of. But I had to reinvent myself. And that was scary. I mean, it was scary to me. I was like, well, for the first time in my life, I said, well, who am I if I'm not a football player, right? What is this guy? Take that, strip me of that. What's left? And like I said, I'd done a lot of things already, but now it was kind of, those were always kind of like side things. It's like, oh yeah, I got a degree in engineering, but whatever. Right now I got to win a football game, right? I mean, that doesn't mean anything right now. But then it became, well, let me embrace those things. What else do I bring to the table? And let me embrace and cultivate those things as best as I can. As Don Davey, the investment advisor, right? And then I met the founders of Firehouse Subs and ended up opening franchises. That was all new to me. And then I became Don Davey, a restaurant franchisor. That was a whole new skill set I had to learn. We ended up having 5 kids. Okay, now I'm a new father, Don Davey the father. How am I going to find myself there? Right? I start coaching flag football, and it's like, all right, what Don Davey is the coach, not just of my own kids, but of these other kids. How am I going to define myself there? And then the Ironman thing was really good for me because what I missed, a big thing of what I missed when I retired was competing. I mean, I didn't want to go to the gym to work out and lift weights and just to look good. I mean, I didn't care about that. It's like I want to line up and beat somebody or get my ass kicked in somebody. I mean, the thrill of competition, that was gone. And so this Ironman thing, that kind of, it's like I did my first sprint triathlon. I almost died. I almost drowned in the Atlantic Ocean. And I'm getting passed by all these weekend warriors. You talk about humbling. I mean, I'm a professional athlete, or I was a professional athlete. They used to pay me a lot of money to do really cool athletic stuff. I'm getting running circles around by my freaking dentist.
Let's be fair to Don Davey. You were a professional athlete trained to be explosive for 3 to 5 seconds at a time,
Yeah.
not for even a sprint triathlon that's like probably over in 30 minutes or so. I mean, that's a huge energy system difference,
Well, and again, I go back to the confidence or arrogance, whatever you want to say it. I didn't train a lick for my first one, and I thought, I don't care. This is a sprint triathlon. What the hell? That's easy. I jumped in the water. I started swimming like crazy. I hadn't swam in 25 years, and I get out, and I probably got 50 yards into it, and I felt like my arms were going to fall off. And it never dawned on me that, we get tired in football. What do? You take a knee, right? You get a water, you get the 30-second TV timeout, whatever, you recoup, and then you go back and go like hell for 3 or 4 seconds. Well, you get tired in the middle of a ocean swim, you sink to the bottom of the ocean, you drown. And it was like, I mean, there was a panic attack. Well, oh, I didn't think of this. I'm huffing and puffing, I'm hyperventilating. I flip on my back just to stay alive, and I start doing the backstroke. And I'll never forget, this little surfer dude comes paddling up to me, one of the race marshals, and he was probably an 18-year-old kid, and he looks down at me doing the backstroke, and he's like, "Dude, did you even know there was a swim in this thing?" But anyway, I got through it, and I did the bike on my old crappy mountain bike. I ran in my tennis shoes, my basketball shoes, and I literally crawled across the finish line. And I was more exhausted than I'd ever been in my life. Um, and I was completely humbled and embarrassed, but I was hooked. I said, you know what? This is what I miss. I say, okay, you got me this time. Let me put some work into this and let me do this again and see, if I can get better. And that was my journey, for the last 15 years now. It's like that led to Olympic distance, half distance, eventually my first full. And then I've done 11 full distance Ironmans and gotten to the point where I'm not, I'll never be a professional triathlete, but I'm pretty damn good at these things, right? Where I can, within my age group, I can still compete and I can hold my water.
Yeah, you hold your water in your age group. You're running against people that have been doing these for most of their lives. But I mean, come on, in the Ironman, there's got to be a Clydesdale division. You've got to be crushing souls in that division, Don. There's no Clydesdale division?
No Clydesdale. It's
That's
all,
it.
yeah.
I'm writing the organizers. That's ridiculous.
I kind of like that. I tell people it sounds weird, you're like an age grouper and you're kind of, you're pretty good at these things, but you're not a pro or anything. But I'm actually more proud of what I've done in Ironman, because I was always big, I was strong, I was fast. I mean, from the time I stepped on the field in kindergarten, I was good at football, right? I mean, my first practice, I was good. That kind of came now, and I got better over the years, and I had to work my ass off to make it to the pros and perfect my skills and my techniques and all that stuff. That was a lot of work to get to becoming an NFL player. But the first time I stepped on a triathlon course, I was horrible. I mean, I just 280 pounds, right? I was built for football. I wasn't built for this, and had every disadvantage in this sport. And so to take from where I was to get to the point where I'm actually pretty good at these things now was even harder than making it the pros in the NFL. Does that make sense? And given my starting point
Yeah,
at each
it's an
level,
amazing
it
reflection
took even
too,
more
though.
work
Yeah.
to get good at Ironman than it did to get to the NFL level across the board. So I love it. I'm still addicted to it. I did my 11th one. My goal, my wife's like, how long do you do these crazy things? She's like, nobody pays you to do this anymore. It's like, at least they used to pay you to play football. And I'm like, no. It's like, my goal is I figure if I make it to there's age groups, right? Every 5 years. And so if I can make it to the 95 to 99 age group, I'll be the only competitor in the Ironman World Championship in Kona, and I want to cross an Ironman on my 99th birthday, and then I can have a heart attack and die. It's like, that's the perfect way to go out. It's like, cross the finish line of an Ironman and say, all right, that's it. I'm going to check out.
Oh man, that's that. Well, there you go. But those goals, right? Your belief system, like I can see you doing that for sure. You had talked about kind of redefining yourself, and I'll just share with you a quick anecdotal story I had that I experienced a couple of weeks ago. And so we ran into one of my oldest daughter's high school teachers a few weeks ago, and she had been following sort of my story, my transition out of the military, what I'm doing now, and some of the things I've started and organized and everything. And she just looked at me and she goes, "Bob, it's remarkable. Like, how many lives have you lived?" And I never really looked at it that way before. And I was like, I was so warmed, and I felt that was such a compliment, because that's really, I'd say if there was a difference is you were very intentional about your pivot. I sort of just was like, opportunities came in or drivers happened and things that I wanted to change or whatnot. And all these things just sort of happened. But when I reflect back on from my military career, what I've done with the kids and all those other things, it's really cool to be a part of many of these different things. And I have many different tribes as a result of this. And it was one of the things I talked about during my retirement ceremony is I don't just have the SEAL tribe. I've got the cycling community. I've got the nonprofit tribe, the USO, and Gary, you name it. They're all out there. And so my network is filled with all these people who I love and appreciate. And they've got this very diverse, eclectic sort of group of people. And Don, you certainly have definitely lived that type of life. You've lived many, many lives already at this point.
Maybe you've never thought about it in these terms. Where we're similar is that, because people say to me the same thing. It's like, geez, I mean, do you ever sleep? I mean, how much stuff do you do? And to me, football was so all encompassing, right? It was every minute of every day was scheduled during, especially the pros, right? I mean, literally our itinerary was down to the 5-minute interval. I mean, it was, hey, we got lifting weights, and then you got breakfast, and then you got meetings, and then you got a walkthrough, and then you're back in the film room, and then we got a second away, and then you got your massage, and then you got practice, and then we got after schedule, and then at home you got your home study, and then you got to get at least 5-6 hours of sleep. You're back up doing it again, and then we got to get on a plane. We got to fly to San Francisco. We got to get the hotel. It was just boom, 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 and then again, take it away. It was scary. It was like, I don't have to be anywhere. I mean, nobody's telling me what to do, how to do it, where to go. And so for me, it's taken all these things to fill that void of football. Football was so all encompassing that, just being an investment advisor wasn't going to cut it, and then just being a financial advisor and being a Firehouse Subs franchisee wasn't enough. And then just having those two businesses and then doing Ironmans wasn't enough, so I started coaching my kids, right? I mean, I just kept adding stuff. And like you, opportunistically, like I looked for opportunities to get more involved in my philanthropic work, right, with different charities and with different business ventures and with, growing and expanding the businesses and with coaching and with volunteering and, raising my own kids, right? And it took all of those things. Where now finally, after adding all that stuff, I feel as fulfilled as I did with football, right? And I bet it's the same with you, right?
Okay.
Whether you did it intentionally or
I
not,
had never thought of
I
it
bet
that way.
you kept looking for
Yeah.
opportunities to fill that void until finally you say, you know what? This is what I had in the military. I feel good again, right? That's been
Yeah.
my
It
experience.
was a combination of both. It was me looking for opportunities and people asking for me. And this is one of the things I share with the transitioning veterans is like, hey, like your first like year out, don't say yes to everything. We are totally ingrained to say yes. And I found myself diluting a little bit of my sort of time bandwidth and everything else. And then after the first year, I sort of regrouped. Now I'm really focused on the things that are really passionate and the things I can feel like I'm making an impact on. But thank you for kind of sharing that, because I think you're exactly right. I mean,
Yeah.
because it's about getting up in the morning. If you, I mean, like, why, if you don't have something driving, you're like, hey, and that was like one of my transition points. It was probably the most stressed I shared earlier about going to NICO and finding out brain scans and trying to figure out all the other issues that were going on with my body after, 28 plus years in the SEAL teams. And they were stressed about my sleep. Like I never they did 2 sleep studies on me. I had no REM sleep. I think I went into REM like once or twice during the sleep studies. And they're like, you need to get 8 hours of sleep. I was sleeping like 3 to 4 hours a night for like the last 20 years. And I was obsessed about trying to get 8 hours sleep. And it has taken me 2.5 years where I can actually get about 7.5 to 8 hours sleep. And I'm more tired now than I ever have been in my life, Don. So it's like, careful what you wish for, I guess.
I'm the same way, man. I get 5 hours tops, and that's like, and it's not on purpose. I mean, I try to sleep. It drives my wife and kids crazy. It's like you're up at 4:15 every damn day. It's Sunday. Don't get up at 4:15. And I try. I just can't. I just whatever. And I've always been like that, kind of high energy, and
And
I
you
guess I
hop out of
recover
bed at
quickly.
4:15?
What's that?
Do you hop out
Yeah,
of bed at 4:15?
yeah. I get up and I'm sitting at the gym waiting for them to open. They don't open till 5, so it's like waiting for the guy to show up with the keys to
And
let us in.
got my
But
buddy
anyway,
Jocko
back to the
Willink
point too.
beating my 15 minutes.
If there's a message, I guess that to the NFL, former athletes, former military guys, is hey, there's that old Dr. Seuss thing, right? About don't cry because it's over. Smile because that happened, right? Be proud of your military service. Be proud of your pro sports career. But hey, you know what? What's next? There's no reason. I tell people this and they laugh at me, but it's 100% true. I wouldn't go back if I could. I loved my time in the NFL, right? But I've built, a successful and rewarding life post NFL where I don't have to get hit in the head anymore. That I wouldn't trade what I have now for what I had back then. And it's, like I said, it's been a long time coming, and it's taken lots of moving pieces. And I love what you said about different tribes. Same way, I got my triathlete buddies, and even within that, I got my swim buddies, I got my cycling buddies, I got my work clients. That's my own family. I've got my employees. I've got my business partners. I've got the whole Firehouse squad. That's like a family. I've got my kids and my kids' friends and their teams that I coach. That's all like our basketball team that I coach. I mean, those kids are like daughters to me as well. I mean, I got my college buddies from Madison. I got my NFL buddies from the Packers and from the Jags. It's like I like having a diverse group of tribe of people and lots of people to lean on and lots of
Yeah.
different activities. It
It's
keeps me going.
so energizing. There's always something going on. There's always an outlet for you, and there's always some support there or other people that you can be helping. It is a very fulfilling way
Yeah.
to live. And
And it,
I'm like you.
and
There's
I
things I
do
miss
think
about the
these.
SEAL teams.
Say that again.
I was just going to say, I miss the SEAL teams. It's mostly the camaraderie and the challenges there, but I wouldn't go back for anything unless I was 22 years old again, and then I would just change a few
Right,
things. But I have no regrets, no
right,
regrets at all.
right, right. And again, I think this is even more universal than that. We were talking earlier before, my wife is going through a similar situation, this whole transition idea, right? We have 5 kids, right? Over the
Yeah.
course of 12 years. I mean, for 25 years, it's been chaos in our house. Because, we got the big fun house, right? It's not only our kids, but all their friends. Someone's always coming and going, staying for dinner, sleeping over, whatever. And we love it. My wife and I, we love kids, and we love that our kids want to be home, right, with and bring their friends over to the house and go to the beach and hang out at our place. But now we only have one. My fourth oldest went off to college this year. We only have one kid at home. My wife and I looked at each other. It's like, this is like having a goldfish. I mean, this is like, it's so easy now compared to what we're used to. It's like, you got to feed her every now and then, drop her off. It's like, well, that's it. And my wife has all this free time on her hands, and she's going through a similar kind of transition where it's like, okay, for 25 years, I've been Kristen, the stay-at-home mom, and I've been juggling the doctor's appointments, dentist appointment, going to school, going to practice, this, that, and we've always had to divide and conquer. Now it's like there's much less time commitment, right, to only having one kid at home, and she's trying to, should I go back to school or should I start a business or should I? She's very accomplished. She's very smart. I mean, she has lots of things she could do. What do I want to do, right? What do I want this next phase of my life to be? And so we go through this with our clients. We work with a business owner for 15 years. He finally gets to the point. He sells his business. He walks away with $4 or $5 million. And we put a plan in place. I'm like, listen, you're done. You can retire and you can just do whatever the hell you want for the rest of your life. A lot of them call me a week later at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday and say, it's 10 o'clock on a Tuesday. I should be doing something. I don't like this retirement stuff. I was like, all right, well, let's redefine you. You used to be, Bob, the business owner. What do you want that to be? Do you want to be a philanthropist? Do you want to go back to work? Do you want to be a consultant? Do you want to try to get your PGA senior tour card? Well, what is it? So, and that's a fun part of my job too, right? I
And
relate
I was going to say, that's just got to be so awesome to be able to provide that insight and help people through that next phase of their life. You've helped them kind of build literally the nest egg that's going to allow them to do that pivot.
It's
Oh, how
funny.
that's got to be just so rewarding.
As an engineer, I used to think, I'm an investment guy. It's all about the numbers. I'll always be judged on how much money I save my clients in taxes, what the investment returns are, all the numbers. And we're really good at that stuff. Trust me. I mean, our numbers are phenomenal. But what I've learned is that really my job is to make my clients' life better, right? It's like money is just a tool, right? It's like, yeah, you need some of it, but the hard part is there's a lot of really wealthy people that are also very miserable. And so it's not enough just to accumulate assets and have a lot of money. It's to help my clients figure these things out. What is most important to you, between your kids, your charity, your business, your work, your volunteering, and to let's use the assets that we've accumulated over the years to make your life as close to perfect as it could be. And what does that look like? And it's fun to ask somebody, hey, what would you do if you could, right? If money weren't an issue, what would you do? That was always our first question on day one with our clients. And then we work backwards from there, right? It's like you told me you
Mhm.
want to have, whatever. You want to have a house in California, you want to have a house in Texas, you want to go back and forth, visiting the kids and grandkids and do some part-time consulting. It's like, well, okay, if you want that, let me quantify that for you. And that means we got to do this between now and then to put you in that book. And taking people across the finish line, right? And sitting with them and saying, hey, you know what, Bob, all these years, you've trusted in me, you believed in this plan. We're there. It's time to implement this dream plan that we've been working toward. It's really, really gratifying. It's really rewarding.
Good. Well, I'm stacking my nest egg up so I can become a discipline equity client of yours because I love that concept. I think it's beautiful. So share with us if you can. I want to talk about RAM towards the end, but I'm really curious because I just saw, your message earlier this week about, the Firehouse Subs, the two founders of it sold the business. So I know there's probably some negotiations going on there, but please share that story with the audience because it's such a great American tale and I won't capture it nearly as well as you. So if you want to walk us through that path and then your relationship with them and then what it looks like.
Well, again, this all fits in with so many of our conversations. Listen, I this country isn't perfect, but it is the greatest country on the planet, right? I mean, I love this country. I love capitalism, entrepreneurship. I mean, it's the fairest, most equitable way to lift all tides, right, across the board. And this story, there couldn't be a better example than this story. Back when I played for the Jags, very early on, I was playing a charity golf outing, and I was partnered with these two brothers, young guys, they're in their 20s, right? And they were third generation firefighters. And on the side, they scraped together $20,000 to open this sub shop. They called it Firehouse Subs. And they still had full time jobs at the fire station. That's what paid the bills. But said, boy, and you should hear them talk about it. I mean, they were just so passionate. Oh my God, it's so cool. We got these big portions. And we went to New York and we saw them steaming the meat in the delis at Katz's Deli. And we're doing that and nobody else is doing it. We really think we're onto something. And I'm like, you guys make any money? He's like, well, no, we're losing our ass. But it's so cool and it's so fun. I mean, I work at it, my brother works at it, my sister works at it, and it was clear from day one they were so passionate about it. And we just hit it off, and we've been friends ever since. But I just kind of kept following their story. And sure enough, they opened a second location, and then a third, and then a fourth here in Jacksonville during my career with the Jaguars. By the time I retired from the Jaguars, they had about 12 locations. And, I had stayed in touch with them. And like, we really think we're onto something here. We've got this figured out. We are making money now, and we're able to pay back our loans. And we think we've talked to franchise attorneys that we think it's big enough now that we can start franchising the concept. And I'm like, well, where are you going to go? It's like, well, the next logical market is Orlando, right? It's still in Florida. It's 2 hours down the road. It's a bigger, better market than Jacksonville, we feel. And I had a buddy in Orlando he was the director of training at the Orlando Hospitality Institute. He was training people to work in restaurants and hotels down there. So he knew that business inside and out. And it's so funny how, this whole idea of God has a plan. He and I were friends. His wife and my sister were friends. That's how we got to know each other. And he called me and he kind of hit a ceiling at his job and he wanted to own his own business and he had decided to buy a Quiznos franchise, right? And so he called me and he said, hey, Don, I know you do financial stuff. He's like, will you help me put a business plan together to do a Quiznos franchise here in Orlando? And at the time, Subway and Quiznos, they were the big boys on the block. Quiznos publicly traded. Subway had, 20,000 locations around the world. And nobody knew who the heck Firehouse was. And I said, you know what? I know these guys in Jacksonville. I've eaten there. I love the food. It's a great concept. There's a line out the door every single day. I said, come up here. I'm going to introduce you to these guys. And if you like what they say, maybe we'll pivot towards Firehouse instead of Quiznos. So he came up. He loved it. I loved it. What he needed was a financial guy, right? He needed an investor. He needed someone to do the books. He knew everything about running a restaurant. He didn't know how to run a business. And so we had complementary skill sets, right? And so we put a partnership together. He said, listen, let's do one of these in Orlando and we'll see how it goes. And that was 18 years ago. And we ended up from there, it did really well. So we opened a second and then a third, then a fourth, just like the founders. We ended up opening 16 of them in Orlando. And then 7 years ago, we bought the state of Wisconsin. We've got 21 of them up there. Okay. So our story as a franchisee was being replicated around the country, right? Other franchisees are going to Texas and they're going to California and they're going to Seattle and they're going to Wisconsin, they're going to New York. And my buddies, Rob and Chris Sorensen, the founders of the company, their job was to put the infrastructure in place to support this ever-growing number of franchisees around the country. Anyway, from the time they opened the first one, when I met them, till now, 27 years later, they opened 1,300 Firehouse Subs around the country and around the world, actually. They're in Canada and Puerto Rico. And just 6 weeks ago, we're approached by the parent company of Burger King that came in and they made a deal to buy the company for $1 billion. So they took their original $20,000 investment in one restaurant, and that's leveraged into $1 billion. And think about everybody that's, oh my God, they're walking away with $1 billion. Think about the hundreds of thousands of employees, franchisees, vendors, contractors. It cost me $400,000 to build one of these. I'm hiring general contractors. That's a big deal to that guy who's a family-owned business. That helps him put food on the plate for his wife and kids, right?
Capitalism!
Yeah. this whole idea of a rising tide lifts all boats, because they had a good concept. I mean, literally much more than $1 billion worth of revenue and sales and contracts and subs sold. And by the way, we have a charitable foundation as part of separate from the nonprofit. There's the Firehouse Subs Public Safety Foundation. We've given away over $60 million worth of life-saving equipment to police and firefighters around the country in the communities where we do business. It's just such a cool story. Family-owned company. Their mother was involved. Their father was involved. Their brothers, their sisters, their cousins, and to have been involved with that company, literally from day one, all the way through the point where they're now selling it. And by the way, this the parent of Burger King, they're what they look for, what they did with Burger King, what they did with Tim Hortons, what they did with Popeyes, is they take brands like this that have been successful in the U.S. and they leverage contracts in Asia and Europe to start developing. There's 1,300 here in the U.S. primarily. There can easily be 10,000 of these when you start opening up the world markets, right, across the board. And they'll be best to do that rather than Robin and Chris Sorensen, and that was kind of the motivation behind it. So, but great American success story. It happened right in my backyard. Two of my closest friends, they're clients of mine on my wealth management firm, right? So along the way, I've been advising them with this whole thing. Now we've got to swallow this elephant. We got a lot of financial planning to do between now and the end of the year for them to get these wire transfers but now think about their goals for the rest of their lives. What are your priorities, right? Every dollar you make, Bob, people don't realize this. It can only go to one of four places, right? You're either going to spend it during your lifetime, right? You're going to leave it to your kids or grandkids or whatever. You're going to give it to charity, or you're going to give it to the government in estate taxes, right? And nobody I know really wants a whole bunch of money going to the government. And so with these guys, like with our other clients, it's okay, how do we efficiently and effectively, spend and enjoy some of it, transfer it to the next generation as efficiently as possible, and help the charities that are most important to you guys. And those are really fun missions to have. They're young guys, they're my age, they're in their 50s. We got another 30, 40, 50 years of how much good can we do with this money? And again, I'm probably smiling from here. I love my job. I love what I do. Yeah. I love Firehouse Subs. I love helping people with this type of thing. And it's fun to have been.
And their story will live on through that franchise forever. People still talk about the founder of McDonald's and Burger King. Those stories, those are that is Americana. Yeah. You might like or dislike the brand, but you cannot take away that entrepreneurial spirit, that had a vision, made success work, and it all happened because of American ingenuity and capitalism.
And what I was knee deep in, what nobody has an appreciation with entrepreneurs is that, everybody reads the headlines. Oh my God, these guys are billionaires now. It's like, lucky them, right? It's like, they almost went belly up probably 5 times, and the amount of money they put in out of their own pockets to pay their employees, the time, the sacrifice, what they were notoriously frugal. They never spent any of their money. They just kept plowing it back into the business, hiring new people. I mean, they've been dedicated to this thing for 27 years. And I don't think most people have an appreciation for the hard work, the dedication, the sacrifice that goes in for 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 or 30 years before anything like this is even possible, right? And so I lived it with them, and nobody has a better appreciation for everything they've done, and they've earned every penny of that across the board because like I said, they've helped so many other people along the way.
Yeah, and I think that's such an important note, and I love the fact that you are emphasizing that, is because in today's generation with social media, everybody pays attention to the highlight reel, and they all think like, oh, this was just some easy button. Oh, how fortunate they are, and without understanding like the real work and grind, the scariness of it all, and sort of, living by the razor's edge for how many, payrolls and everything else they had to go through to keep things afloat. So yeah, I'm so happy when I saw that message that was happening with them and with your organizations. That was great. And I had forgotten that you have, franchises in both Wisconsin and in Florida. So yeah. Awesome stuff.
Great company, great story, and it's been fun to be a part of.
Yeah. So let's pivot to 2021 earlier. You and I didn't meet. I think, yeah, we maybe met on one or two Zoom calls prior to the race across America, but then we really met um, in Oceanside. And, a couple of weeks ago, I interviewed Dream, Michael Dream Chaser. So we got the story of you introducing yourself to him stark naked in the hotel room, on RAM. But I kind of what you want to share from the RAM experience. I mean, obviously, the impact that your father's made on your life was very apparent to me based on how you approached RAM and everybody involved with it and everything like that. So it
Yeah.
was just really an
Well,
honor to be able to meet you there and then participate and see the phenomenal human being you are. But then in that era of you pushing yourself, you know every day for hours at a time was really remarkable. But so what did it mean to you, and what was your takeaways from RAM?
it's again, the whole, I always feel like God's got a plan, right? I mean, we're not always smart enough to know what that is. In fact, we can't know it, right? Only He can know. He knows, what's going to happen to you tomorrow and next week and next year and 10 years down the road. And this whole Ram thing, it's just, in hindsight, it's just so obvious. I talked about my father. My father and I are best friends to this day. He went to every football game I ever played. He loved eating at Firehouse Subs. He was a client of mine on the wealth management firm. I mean, it just, I loved him like all sons love their father, but he and I had a very special relationship, right? And he passed away in February, and I feel like I owe so much of my success to him. Like I said, when I went to school, it's like I was so surprised that everybody thought what I did was remarkable. I said, this isn't remarkable. This is just what Ken Davey taught me. This is how you do things, right? You take care of school first, and applied that to everything, and it's led to success in so many different areas. And when he died, you talk about a void, right? When he passed away, what a void. And I'm kind of fits in with everything else we're talking about. I'm a proud guy, and I'm a confident guy, and all that stuff. And the idea of sitting with a counselor or a therapist or a grief group and kind of sharing that kind of stuff, I didn't feel like that would have helped me very much, right? But this RAM thing came along at the same time. And at first I had said no, just because I got so many other things going on. But then it was kind of like, this is kind of a new challenge, something new, kind of different. This is before my dad got sick. This is back in 2020. I was like, you know what? This will be something new. I'll challenge myself. I don't know. Let's find out if I can bike across country or not. It's for a good cause. It's for military veterans. I signed up for it. And then, so my dad passed away in February. That very next week is our training camp out in California. And I needed a getaway, right? I was in such a bad place after my dad passed away. And I get out and I just instantly bonded with everybody on that RAM team, former military or someone that had a connection to the military, former athletes. And it was like a locker room again, right? And we're all kind of sharing our stories. I was like, this is a cool group of people. And, they're counting on me to pull my weight. I'm going to train my ass off for this thing, right? And so it kind of became my therapy. You saw I put a picture of my dad on my aero
Yeah.
bars, right? Every time I was on the trainer, I mean, I probably rode, I don't know, 4,000 miles training for this thing. I mean, I was on my bike a lot getting ready for RAM. And every time I was on my bike, I was wearing my dad's dog tags and looking at my dad's picture. And I used that as a chance to talk to him and to pray to him and to kind of process all this grief I was dealing with. And it was so, and I had the end game in mind, right? I had the competitiveness of, hey, I got this race. I want to train really hard so that I do well in this race. It ended up being great therapy for me. That 6 months of preparation for RAM was really good therapy. And then, of course, the race itself was, all right, this is it. Just like a football game or just like an Ironman, Dad, everything you taught me, I'm going to put it to good work to make you proud during the course of this race. And I really felt that. And no more so than you remember, that second to last day. I had I had a really rough day. I mean, I really got to the point, after going through the desert, climbing the mountains, crossing the plains, we got to a point where I just woke up that day. I felt awful from day one. I was throwing up on the bike. I just felt weak. I felt slow. My power numbers weren't where I want to be. And I was nervous and I was scared. I was like, we're a day from the finish. And my body's giving out now. It's like, I got to get through this. I owe it to the team and I owe it to my dad. And I woke up that next morning, man, and we had, a lot of climbing ahead of us. It was going to be a really challenging course through the Appalachians. And I just woke up like Superman. I mean, I just woke up feeling awesome. And I have no other explanation other than, that was when I needed my dad, he was there. He came to me, he gave me the energy, he gave me the spark I needed. You remember, I blew right past the beast when you guys are waiting to pick me up. And we're right in the middle of a climb. I was like, listen, I'm good. I can't explain it. I feel awesome. Let me take it. Because by then the other teammates, right? Mike wasn't feeling the best, and Sarah Farrell wasn't feeling the best, and those guys were struggling a little bit, and they were happy to let me kind of take their shifts for them. And that was the funnest day of the whole week for me, because you talk about feeling a connection to my dad. I felt like I wasn't even doing anything. It's like I was just holding on, and he was powering my legs and taking me on this awesome ride through those beautiful hills and countryside. It was really, really cool.
It was remarkable, and I can't share all of my observations because I will lose my shit and be bawling my eyes out. But Don tapped into that power, and so for the audience, is I had a headset and a microphone, and Don and all the other riders had helmets that also had headsets and microphones on, so we could communicate to one another. And as Don takes off, he looks at me and says, "Hey, Bob, I'm going to turn off, zone out. This is for me and my dad." True human spirit. It was remarkable. And yeah, you were riding with your dad for sure. Really awesome.
It was, like I say, it was magical. It was really cool. It was just a cool experience. And then, I'd flown my mom up to the finish line, right? My brother lives in Virginia. He came up. He brought my mom to the finish line. I had carried an American flag coast to coast in honor of my dad. And at the finish line, um, you talk about an emotional moment. My mom, it's 3 a.m. We get there. My mom's 83 years old, but she was like, I'm going to be there come hell or high water at the finish to see you. And she's standing at the finish, and we cross the finish line. And I hand her the flag, but not just me, the whole team, right, had known this story.
Yeah.
They embraced my mom as if she were their own mother, right? And you talk about an emotional moment. We all lost it at the finish line. That, hey, mom, you know what? This is from dad, and it was it was like closure for both of us. You know what I mean? I think I hope I made dad. Dad was all about hard work. He was all about discipline. He would have been, riding your bike coast to coast. I can't think of anything harder than that. It takes grit, it takes determination, it takes hard work, it takes everything he stood for. And then to hand that flag to my mom at the finish line, it was beautiful for both of us. That we just, you know what? Thank you, Dad, for everything you did. We hope you're proud. And this is I'm able to handle his loss much better now. Like I said, I was scared. I was in a deep place. I mean, I've struggled with never with drugs, but with alcohol before, and I was afraid that after my dad passed away, that that could have taken a pretty bad turn, right? I mean, that could have been depression, it could have been drinking, it could have been isolation, and I feel like God sent Ram into my life as to prevent that from happening, right? So not only we're going to go on this bad path, I'm going to put you on this good path where everything's going to be positive about your dad's life and his passing. So very grateful for that. And the magic of Ram, that whole thing, Bob, I'm sure you can attest. Just that group of people, that group of human beings that came together, all of us didn't know each other. I mean, I told my kids, it's like they all watch those reality TV shows, right? The the premise of every reality TV show is like, let's take 20 strangers, throw them on an island, throw them in a room, throw them in a house, and just film them for a week and give them some impossible task. And there's going to be nothing but drama and fighting and arguing and bitching and moaning and everything. That's basically what we were thrust into, right? It was a reality show. Here, you 20 strangers, you got to get these 8 guys from this coast to this coast with nothing but a freaking RV and a microwave and and a couple of
And a
headsets.
bus that breaks down every 200 miles.
Yeah. And not only did we do it, and not only was there no arguing or fighting, there was this nothing but love. with everybody, right? It was this
Love.
camaraderie and this sense of teamwork, and it was this shared mission that it was like, it was beautiful. It was really cool to be a part of. I mean, and it's a credit to everybody on the staff, from the, the cooks to the drivers to the Bob on the headset. I mean, everybody contributed to that effort, and it was really, really cool. I use the word family. Our Ram family for that experience was really, really cool, and something I'll never forget.
Yeah, I share it. It was definitely family, and we're all grateful for you, Don. You were the inspiration to a lot of us on the team through your positivity and your grit and compassion, and your vulnerability as well. Those moments that we shared of gratitude in the evenings in the bus while we're moving up to the next launch point were just like, we learned to appreciate one another and share with one another. And those are such important attributes for us as human beings today. Competition is for competitions. It ain't for life. Life is about sharing love and camaraderie and compassion with one another and helping, like you've said it multiple times on this segment, is that rising tide is designed to lift all boats. And that is your spirit, Don. I love and appreciate you, brother. Thank you so much for sharing all of this with us. What a great segment. I think we covered so much in 90 minutes of your life's journey. We might have to have you on again to go a little bit more in depth with some of your Ironman and your future endeavors as well. So from the bottom of my heart and from the team here at Victory Strategies and the Victory Podcast, thanks so much, Don, for sharing with us today.
Happy to do it, Bob. Great to reconnect with you, man.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Victory Podcast, where we explore life, leadership, and journey. Please follow us on Instagram at the Victory Podcast, as well as LinkedIn, and our website at victorystrategies.com, where you can also follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn. Have a phenomenal day, everyone. And until next time, I'm your host, Bob Newman, telling you all right, have a phenomenal day. And if you're still listening, why not tune in to the previous episode if you haven't given it a listen yet? Cheers.